I've spent most of my life trying not to think about what happened during that patrol. Even now, 37 years later, I still wake up at 3 a.m. to the sound of things that shouldn't exist tapping on steel. It was 1987, height of the Cold War. Nuclear tensions ratcheting toward midnight. Anyone who served during that time will tell you the ocean was full of ghosts back then. Not literal ghosts. Oh, after what I saw, I'm not so sure. But the kind made of metal and silence. Submarines, shadows, rumors of shadows. I was Sonar Man First Class Daniel Rourke, assigned to the USS Vanguard, a fast attack submarine running patrols in the North Atlantic. The patrol had been quiet until the night everything changed. Too quiet. Contact faint, bearing 239. I said into my mic. Possible biologics. Weak signal. Captain Hale leaned over my shoulder without saying a word. He wasn't the yelling type, which made him more terrifying than most captains I'd known. When Hale stared at you, you felt like your bones were being inspected for structural flaws. Biologics, he murmured, more to himself than to me. Or something else. I swallowed. Hard to say. It's matching speed, he straightened. Matching ours? We haven't changed speed. That's when the dread stirred in my stomach, because he was right. We hadn't changed speed, but the contact had. It's still mirroring us, I said. Mirroring what? Exo Briggs barked from behind me. He always barked. He didn't seem capable of speaking like a normal human being. Before I could answer, the contact did something that made my blood go cold. It turned. We hadn't turned yet, but it turned first. Jesus Christ, Madsen whispered from the next console. It's ahead of us. I didn't answer. My hands were sweating so badly that I almost dropped my headset. I'd logged thousands of hours listening to whales, Soviet screws, merchant ships, undersea earthquakes. Nothing moved like that contact was moving. Captain Hale put a hand on my shoulder. Sonar man, tell me what I'm looking at. I almost said the truth. I don't know, sir, but I couldn't force the words out, because what I was hearing in my headset wasn't just a contact, it was a reflection. Not of sound, but of us. A perfect copy of our submarine, moving before we moved, as if it knew what we were going to do, as if it were remembering us from the future. Life on a submarine is like living inside a steel coffin shared with another 130 people. No windows, no sunlight, no privacy. The air always a little too warm, a little too stale. The smell of diesel and metal, and men stacked on top of each other in shifts. Most civilians don't know this, but submariners have unwritten rules. Not procedures, those are in the manuals. I mean the kind of rules whispered between veterans during midwatch when the lights are dim and the ocean is pressing in from all sides. Madsen, my bunkmate, was the superstitious type. He had a list of those rules taped on the wall above his rack. Stuff he heard from old-timers during training. If you hear tapping on the hull that matches your breathing, don't acknowledge it. If sonar picks up your own Morse patterns, stop transmitting immediately. Never speak to a voice that identifies itself as someone topside. No one topside can reach you. And the worst one, if you detect a second submarine that matches your movements perfectly, cut power, wait, do not approach. This last one was old. Older than the Cold War, a myth, most said. Madsen claimed it came from the World War II era, from sailors who swore they'd heard echoes of themselves in the depth. I'd always laughed at those rules, until the night something began following us. The sound didn't belong to anything that should have been in our ocean. When I dialed in the frequency, the hair on my arm stood straight up. It was the same signature as our own submarine. Same reactor hum, same screw blade pitch, same cavitation noise, except it wasn't us. It was like someone was playing a recording of our sub 30 minutes into the future. You ever hear anything like that? Madsen whispered. No, and I don't want to. Briggs approached, scowling so hard I could hear it. What's wrong with you two? He snapped. You look like you've seen a ghost. Sir, I said, this contact, I don't want excuses, I want classification. He slapped the console hard. A
flinched. Briggs watched for it. He liked that. A man like him needed people to be afraid of him. It was how he convinced himself he mattered. But before he could go on his tirade, Captain Hale spoke. "Briggs, step away from my sonar station." Even Briggs froze. Nobody disobeyed Hale. Not if they liked their kneecaps. The XO backed away. Hale leaned closer to the screen. "Tell me, is it us?" I nearly lied. The fear was that strong. "Yes, but wrong," he inhaled slowly. "Wrong how?" "It moves first." Hale stared at me for a long time and nodded. "Continue tracking. Do not ping." I stiffened. "Sir." "You heard me, Rourke. If that thing is what I think it is, we follow the old rules." Madsen's face went white. "You think it's the Black Echo?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Everyone in the room felt the temperature drop.
There were stories, always stories passed from submarine to submarine. Some were meant to scare new recruits. Others, the older guys didn't joke about. I'd heard rumors of something called the Black Echo, a phenomenon sailors swore was older than sonar, something that mimicked you in the deep, a perfect reflection made of water and pressure and darkness. I used to think it was just a myth used to keep new sonar techs from falling asleep on duty. But when our contact rose 15 meters, right before we rose 15 meters, when it turned before we turned, when it traced our path through the black ocean like a shadow anticipating its caster, I knew exactly what Hale meant. He believed it. Madsen believed it. And now, so did I. I kept listening, headset tight against my ears. The contact shadowed us for 2 hours straight, silent, precise, ahead of us. Finally, Hale ordered quiet routine. No talking, minimal movement, no active sonar. Lights dimmed, we drifted. But the mirroring sub drifted with us. Not beside us, not behind us. Always just out of sight, always just ahead. At 0217 hours, I heard something that made me rip off my headset. Footsteps, recorded through water, except they were from inside our own submarine. I froze. Hale stepped forward. "Rourke, what did you hear?" I swallowed hard. "Us," I said quietly. "I heard us." "What do you mean?" Footsteps echoed through the channel. Multiple sets, boots clanging on metal grating. They were identical to the footsteps happening inside our own submarine at that very moment. And then, God help me, I heard my own voice. Not a recording, not playback. I heard myself whisper over sonar, "Captain, it's copying us." But I hadn't said it yet, not out loud, not until that moment. Madsen backed away from the console. "Nope, nope, nope, nope." Briggs stormed over. "Turn that damn thing off." Hale held up a hand. "Nobody touches that equipment." He looked at me. "Rourke, keep listening." My throat was dry as dust. "Sir, whatever is out there, it hears us. It knows us." Hale's jaw clenched. "Then we stay quiet. We do not acknowledge it. Understood?" No one disagreed, not even Briggs, because we all knew the truth now. Something was following us. Something that sounded like us, moved like us, thought like us. A reflection. But reflections don't move on their own. This one did. You don't forget the sound of tapping on a submarine hull. It's not natural. Fish don't tap. Whales don't tap. Currents don't tap. The only things that tap on steel at 900 feet below the surface are humans, or things pretending to be human. The sound was soft and deliberate, like knuckles on a coffin lid. Tap, 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 tap. Madsen's head snapped toward me. "You heard that, right?" I didn't answer, because the tapping wasn't random. The rhythm matched something I recognized instantly. It matched my heartbeat. Tap,
Tap, tap, tap. I forced myself to stay still, knowing with the kind of instinct humans probably had before we learned to speak, that whatever was outside that hull should not be acknowledged. But Madsen whispered anyway. Maybe it's... He stopped. He didn't want to say the word. A diver. Because divers don't survive at the pressure we were under. Nothing with bones survives at that pressure. The tapping repeated. A perfect mimicry of my pulse. Briggs stormed into Sonar, red-faced as always. "What the hell is going on in here? Who's banging around?" Nobody spoke, because the tapping continued. And now, everyone could hear it. Briggs grabbed a wrench. "I swear to God, if this is a joke..." Captain Hale appeared behind him, silent, immovable, cold as the steel we sailed in. Put the wrench down, XO. Briggs turned. "Sir, we've got..." I heard it. That shut him up. Hale approached the console and picked up a headset. "Sonar man, is that tapping coming from inside or outside?" I swallowed hard. "Outside, sir." Everyone went quiet. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Hale whispered, "Match course and speed." I stuttered. "We haven't changed course of speed, sir." The captain's throat tightened. "Then it's matching us." Madsen crossed himself. I didn't blame him. Briggs, trying to reclaim some sense of authority, ordered us to deploy the external camera drone. Hale hesitated, but ultimately nodded. He wanted answers. We all did. The drone released with a soft metallic clunk and slid silently through the forward launch tube. The main screen flickered to life with grainy underwater footage. Just black water at first, then particles drifting in our floodlights. A long cloud of silt, tiny fish scattering. "Rotate starboard," Briggs ordered. The camera shifted right. "Starboard more," he snapped. The camera tilted further, and something slipped past the edge of the screen. A shadow, long, curved, moving against the current. "Back," I whispered. "Bring it back." The drone rotated left. Nothing, just drifting sediment. No, Madsen breathed, because the shadow had moved. It wasn't stationary. It wasn't an object. It was swimming. Hale leaned close to the screen. "Keep searching." The camera swept in a slow circle, and there it was, just out of full view, hovering in the spill of our lights like a creature that knew the exact distance it needed to stay hidden. A shape the size of a submarine, long, sleek, featureless, as black as the void around it. And when the camera moved right, it moved left. When the camera moved left, it moved right. Perfect counter-movement, like a reflection that didn't want to be seen. What the hell is that?" Briggs whispered. Nobody answered, because now we understood the awful truth. This thing wasn't following us. It was mirroring us. Every shift, every tilt, every tiny deviation in our movement, it anticipated them before we made them. As if it already knew. The drone's lights flickered. For a second, the camera glitched, and the thing turned its head. It had no eyes, no mouth, no features, just a suggestion of a face shaped like ours. The camera died instantly. Black screen, silence. Hale straightened, breathing hard. No more visual attempts. We don't want to provoke it. Briggs opened his mouth to argue, then shut it, because provoking whatever that was felt like asking to drown.
At 4:52, the impossible got worse. I was adjusting the gain on the sonar when the speaker emitted a chirp, one of our own coded signals. "Captain," I said quietly, "we have an incoming modulation. Sounds like a transmission." Hale stepped beside me. "From where?" "Bearing 239.
same direction as the contact. Madsen looked sick. That's where the mirror sub is. Briggs shoved between us. Play it. That's an order. I hesitated, because the whispering, scratching through the channel didn't sound like any Soviet code, or Chinese, or NATO. It sounded like us. The timestamp confirmed it. The transmission came from a point less than 500 meters off our bow. Nobody should have been out there, but I pressed play. A voice came through. "All hands, brace, impact!" Captain Hale's jaw dropped. It's you," I whispered. He turned pale, because the voice we were hearing wasn't just similar. It was his voice. Same pitch, same accent, same tone. Then another voice layered in, the cook, humming the song he always hummed during midnight prep. Then Madsen, stammering. And then I heard myself, clearer than any recording I'd ever heard. "It's going to hit us. Captain, it's coming." But I hadn't said that yet. I was still sitting there, still listening, still breathing. I felt my own heartbeat stop, just stop. For one terrible second, the transmissions turned into chaos. Screams, metal groaning, hull buckling, water surging, static, and then impact. A sickening crunch through the speakers. Silence. The sonar contact vanished. Everyone stared at me. Captain Hale spoke first. That was the future. Briggs backed away. No, that's not. This is some Soviet trick, some signal manipulation, But the truth hung in the air, thick as the ocean above us. Whatever was mirroring us was replaying a version of events that hadn't happened yet, and maybe would, unless we changed something. Not everyone handles drowning in inevitability the same way. Captain Hale stayed composed. I went numb. Madsen started silently crying, but Briggs snapped. He shoved Junior Tech aside and slammed his fist onto the console. "This is psychological warfare," he shouted. "It's a Soviet decoy submarine. They're trying to break our discipline." "XO," Hale warned. "No, sir. I will not let some Russian mind game immobilize my crew." Briggs lunged for the active sonar switch. If he activated it, the blast could shatter nearby sea life or provoke the mirroring entity. "XO, step away," Hale barked. Briggs didn't listen. He hit the switch. A shrill pulse rippled through the water, vibrating the entire hull. The lights flickered. My ears popped. Madsen screamed. "Why did you do that?" The sonar display lit up in an instant. The mirrored submarine was right on top of us, a shape the size of a skyscraper drifting silently over our hull. No noise, no cavitation, no reactor signature, just presence, heavy, watching, learning. Briggs went white. What is it doing?" Hale didn't blink. "It's deciding." Briggs backed away until he hit the wall. What do you mean, deciding?" But nobody answered, because something tapped the hull. A single tap, not like before, not in time with any pulse. This was a tap with intention, a tap to say, "I hear you." We went quiet. Every man in sonar held his breath. The tapping stopped. Then, from the far end of the submarine, tap. It echoed down the hull like a slow knock from something enormous, sliding its knuckles across the steel. "Control," a crewman whispered over comms. "We're getting vibrations aft, heavy vibrations." The tapping continued, moving along the hull as if something was walking across it. Not swimming, not drifting, walking. The pressure gauge jittered. My screen flickered. The contact vanished and reappeared behind us instantly. Madsen clutched the edge of the console. "It's playing with us." Nobody disagreed. The tapping paused, then tapped back, the exact rhythm Briggs used when he'd slammed his fist on the console earlier. Madsen stared. It's copying us. I closed my eyes. No, it's learning us. Briggs staggered backward, shaking like a man facing execution. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. The lights flickered again. The hull groaned, bending as if something was pressing on it from outside. Not enough to crush us, just enough to remind us it could. Captain Hale leaned close to Briggs and spoke calmly and calmly. You violated the rules. Sir, what rules? Hale didn't blink. The ones we don't write down.
At 4:52, the impossible got worse. I was adjusting the gain on the sonar when the speaker emitted a chirp, one of our own coded signals. "Captain," I said quietly, "we have an incoming modulation. Sounds like a transmission." Hale stepped beside me. "From where?" "Bearing 239, same direction as the contact." Madsen looked sick. That's where the mirror sub is." Briggs shoved between us. "Play it. That's an order." I hesitated, because the whispering, scratching through the channel didn't sound like any Soviet code, or Chinese, or NATO. It sounded like us. The timestamp confirmed it. The transmission came from a point less than 500 meters off our bow. Nobody should have been out there, but I pressed play. A voice came through. "All hands, brace, impact!" Captain Hale's jaw dropped. It's you," I whispered. He turned pale, because the voice we were hearing wasn't just similar. It was his voice. Same pitch, same accent, same tone. Then another voice layered in, the cook, humming the song he always hummed during midnight prep. Then Madsen, stammering. And then I heard myself, clearer than any recording I'd ever heard. "It's going to hit us. Captain, it's coming." But I hadn't said that yet. I was still sitting there, still listening, still breathing. I felt my own heartbeat stop, just stop for one terrible second. The transmissions turned into chaos. Screams, metal groaning, hull buckling, water surging, static, and then impact, a sickening crunch through the speakers. Silence. The sonar contact vanished. Everyone stared at me. Captain Hale spoke first. That was the future. Briggs backed away. No, that's not. This is some Soviet trick, some signal manipulation, But the truth hung in the air, thick as the ocean above us. Whatever was mirroring us was replaying a version of events that hadn't happened yet, and maybe would, unless we changed something. Not everyone handles drowning in inevitability the same way. Captain Hale stayed composed. I went numb. Madsen started silently crying, but Briggs snapped. He shoved Junior Tech aside and slammed his fist onto the console. "This is psychological warfare," he shouted. "It's a Soviet decoy submarine. They're trying to break our discipline." "XO," Hale warned. "No, sir. I will not let some Russian mind game immobilize my crew." Briggs lunged for the active sonar switch. If he activated it, the blast could shatter nearby sea life or provoke the mirroring entity. "XO, step away," Hale barked. Briggs didn't listen. He hit the switch. A shrill pulse rippled through the water, vibrating the entire hull. The lights flickered. My ears popped. Madsen screamed. "Why did you do that?" The sonar display lit up in an instant. The mirrored submarine was right on top of us, a shape the size of a skyscraper drifting silently over our hull. No noise, no cavitation, no reactor signature, just presence, heavy, watching, learning. Briggs went white. What is it doing?" Hale didn't blink. "It's deciding." Briggs backed away until he hit the wall. What do you mean, deciding?" But nobody answered, because something tapped the hull. A single tap, not like before, not in time with any pulse. This was a tap
with intention. A tap to say, "I hear you." We went quiet. Every man in Sonar held his breath. The tapping stopped. Then, from the far end of the submarine, tap. It echoed down the hull like a slow knock from something enormous, sliding its knuckles across the steel. "Control," a crewman whispered over comms. "We're getting vibrations aft, heavy vibrations." The tapping continued, moving along the hull as if something was walking across it. Not swimming, not drifting. Walking. The pressure gauge jittered. My screen flickered. The contact vanished and reappeared behind us instantly. Madsen clutched the edge of the console. "It's playing with us." Nobody disagreed. The tapping paused, then tapped back, the exact rhythm Briggs used when he'd slammed his fist on the console earlier. Madsen stared. It's copying us." I closed my eyes. "No, it's learning us." Briggs staggered backward, shaking like a man facing execution. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to." The lights flickered again. The hull groaned, bending as if something was pressing on it from outside. Not enough to crush us, just enough to remind us it could. Captain Hale leaned close to Briggs and spoke calmly and calmly. "You violated the rules." Sir, what rules?" Hale didn't blink. "The ones we don't write down."
At 0614 clock, the sonar contact vanished. Not faded, not drifted, not slipped out of range. Vanished, like it had never existed. Then the pressure around us shifted, small at first, then enough to rattle mugs in the galley 2 compartments away. The crew whispered about everything from trench currents to Soviet deep-water drones, but no one believed those explanations, not after what we'd heard. I kept my headset on, scanning for anything, an echo, a rogue frequency, a misaligned calibration. Nothing. Just emptiness. When sonar goes empty that fast, it doesn't feel like silence. It feels like being watched. Captain Hale stood behind me, stone-faced. "Rourke," he said quietly, "what do you think happened to it?" I swallowed. "I don't know, sir." Hale nodded once, though we both knew the truth. It didn't leave. It simply got close enough that we couldn't detect it. The lights flickered. A ripple passed through the hull like a massive hand brushing it. Then, "Captain!" the periscope operator shouted. "You need to see this!" Hale didn't run, but he moved fast. I followed. The periscope was trained upward, toward the surface. The water above us glowed faintly from the rising sun. It should have been comforting, but hovering just below the surface, suspended like some dead leviathan, was a shape, long, curved, metallic, a submarine, but wrong. Rust ate the hull. Sections were caved in. The sail leaned. Windows were shattered, a corpse of steel. But that wasn't the disturbing part. The disturbing part was the faded lettering on the mangled bow. USS Vanguard. Our submarine. Us, but broken, destroyed, dead. Briggs stumbled backward. "That's what? How?" Hale lowered the periscope and steadied himself on a console. It was the closest I'd ever seen him come to showing fear. Madsen whispered the only explanation any of us could think of. That's us from a different time." I shut my eyes, because I knew he was right. Everything the mirror sub had done, the voices from the future, the footsteps we hadn't taken yet, the mirroring, the predicting. It wasn't reacting to us. It was showing us something inevitable. At 8:55 o'clock, the fog thickened. So thick, it started to seep down the periscope shaft. Not moisture, fog, like a living thing. The temperature dropped to near freezing. Frost formed on metal handrails. Men's breaths turned to vapor. "Captain," the helmsman whispered, "instruments are wrong." The depth gauge spun wildly. The barometer shattered. The compass needle circled in mad spirals. Madsen murmured, "The ocean's lying to us." Then came the worst sound I've ever heard. Screaming. From outside. Human screaming. Hundreds of voices crying, begging, dying. Some deep, some high-pitched, some whispering things I knew I'd never forget if I let them sink in. Briggs clamped his hands over his ears. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" Hale tried to keep control. "Everyone stay calm." But the screaming changed and became familiar because it was us, crew members, our own voices, panicked, drowning, suffocating. Then Captain Hale's voice howled through the water. "Dive! Dive! Dive!" Then mine. "It's crushing! We're Captain!" And then Briggs's voice, sobbing, "Forgive me, please." Every man in that room turned toward me, but I couldn't speak because I heard another voice, a voice deeper, older, dry as cracking ice. One fate, one shadow, one echo. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in. Dim red glow. Heartbeat lighting. The screaming stopped. The fog withdrew. And on sonar, 2 contacts appeared. Both identical. Both reading as USS Vanguard. One behind us, one ahead of us. Madsen gasped. "We're in the middle," Hale whispered. "Past and future." Briggs completely unraveled. "This is wrong! This is wrong! We have to choose!" Hale stared at the 2 readings. "No," he said. "We don't choose. That's the trap." He pointed at the movement pattern. The future wreck sub was drifting aimlessly, dead metal, but the other, the dark reflection, was rising toward us, slowly, not attacking, not retreating, waiting. "Captain," I whispered, "if we move toward the living one," he nodded, "we become what waits behind us. And if we move toward the wreck," I started, "we die." So we were trapped between 2 endings, both ours. Madsen shook his head. "There has to be another way." There was. I knew it because something inside me, something primal, whispered it. We couldn't choose a path. We had to break the idea of a path. The 2 versions of our submarine held position on sonar, one ahead, one behind, the past and the future, or the doomed and the saved, depending how you framed it. But both were closing in. The air tasted metallic. Men were shaking. Someone was praying. It might have been me. Captain Hale leaned close to me at sonar. "Rourke," he whispered, "what do you hear?" I swallowed, listened. The ocean hummed with pressure, deep, resonant, ancient, and underneath it, faint and rhythmic, our own reactor, our own machinery, our own movements coming from both sides. "I hear us," I said. "Both of us?" Hale asked. I nodded. "Both at once." Hale turned to the crew and spoke with a quiet authority that cut through panic like a blade. "We've been reacting, running, changing course every time this thing appears." Briggs, wild-eyed, unhinged, stumbled forward. "What does that matter? We have to move, sir." "No," Hale said flatly. "Movement is exactly what it wants." He stepped closer to the sonar screen. "This reflection, it feeds on action, on responses. Every time we act, it reacts before we do. It's learning us, predicting us, forcing us into the outcome it wants." Madsen whispered, "The wreck, the voices, they were warning us." "Not warning, showing us. Showing what happens if we move." Briggs laughed, manic, hopeless. "So what? We just sit here? We let it crush us?" "No," Hale said flatly. "We do nothing." The room fell silent. Hale pointed at the sonar. "That thing is a mirror, a dark one, but a mirror all the same.
It can only move if we move. It can only choose if we choose. His voice dropped. So we choose nothing. I felt electricity crawl up my spine. It was the last unwritten rule, the one nobody said out loud because no one thought it would ever matter. If the ocean shows you a version of yourself, don't react, don't move, don't choose. We powered down. Everything. Reactor idle. Engines dead. Lights off. Controls untouched. We floated in total darkness. The ocean pressed around us, heavy and endless, like waiting in the jaws of something enormous. Briggs tried to speak again, but Hale shut him down with a single look. Stillness, absolute stillness. Minutes passed, then hours, silent, terrifying, agonizing. In that stillness, we heard it, a faint scraping along the hull, not tapping this time, not imitation, searching, feeling, testing. Whatever was out there was confused. It didn't know what we were doing because we weren't doing anything. Then, boom. A deep thud from above shook dust loose from the pipes. My heart stopped. It's the wreck, Madsen whispered. It's drifting over us. Another thud. A long groan of metal dragging over metal. Hale shut his eyes. Hold position. None of us dared to breathe loud enough to be heard. After 13 long minutes, the scraping faded. The wreck drifted away. Then, slowly, the sonar contact behind us blinked out. Right after, the one ahead of us dissolved too, both gone. Then, for the first time in hours, a natural sound, a whale's distant call. Madsen sobbed. I nearly did too. The ocean was ours again. When Hale finally gave the order to power up, it was barely audible. Engines ahead 1/3, reactor to normal ops, ascend to surface. The crew moved like ghosts, slow, exhausted, terrified of making a wrong motion. As we rose, the fog thinned, light filtered down like dust on an attic floor. The temperature finally began to rise. When we broke the surface, the world looked normal, real, untouched. Cold air, gray sky, calm waves, no wreck, no shadows, no mirroring double. Hale climbed to the conning tower and scanned the horizon. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he whispered down the hatch, "It's gone." The words felt unreal. Briggs collapsed to his knees. Some men laughed, some cried. I just stared at the waves, watching, waiting, wondering if the ocean would take that moment back. Back inside, the crew was quieter than a church. Hale gathered us in the mess hall. He looked like a man a decade older. "Men," he said, "there will be no report about what happened here. There will be no debrief, no documents, no mention of reflections, echoes, or wrecks." He paced. "Because if you tell someone what you saw, you give it more shape, more reality, more power." His voice dropped. "And it listens. It always listens." No one questioned him, not after what we'd lived through. He turned to me specifically. "Rourke," he said, "write this down." I grabbed a pencil with shaking hands. Hale spoke slowly. "The rules of the deep are simple. 1. If something mirrors your course, cut speed, cut sound, cut light. 2. If you hear yourself calling from the future, do not answer, do not react. 3. If a second version of your vessel appears, do not move toward it or away from it. 4. If the ocean shows you your own corpse, you still have time to change course, but only by choosing nothing. 5. Above all else, if you see yourself, be still, because the ocean watches and the ocean learns." 37 years later, I was retired, living alone, far from the ocean. I'd almost convinced myself none of it happened, that we were exhausted, hallucinating, misinterpreting sonar, that the black echo was folklore, nothing more. Then a package arrived. No return address, just a small, heavy object wrapped in oilcloth. Inside, a bent shard of submarine hull, covered in rust. Faded letters still visible. USS Vanguard. Hull fragment 3B. Recovered 2025. Classified. I stared at the date for a long time. 2025. 18 years after the Vanguard was decommissioned. Decades after the wreck we saw should have existed. It shouldn't have been possible unless the ocean was still mirroring us, still imitating, still learning, still listening. The fragment was warm in my hands. Something inside it vibrated faintly like a heartbeat. I dropped it. The metal clanged against the floor and tapped. 4 taps. Pause. 4 taps. My heartbeat. My legs gave out because I remembered rule number 2. If something taps with your heartbeat, don't respond. I backed away. The fragment tapped again and again, and then, from the hollow of the metal, I heard my own voice whisper, "Rourke, it's not done copying us."